Chicago on fire right now. We've got the President of the United States calling for the arrest of the mayor of Chicago, Brendan Johnson, as well as the governor, Pritzker, who, by the way, is not helping matters at all. Things are unfolding and getting a little bit wild, shall we say, like 1860s style wild. They seem to forget that actually there is this little thing called the Supremacy Clause in the United States Constitution. We're all over that story here today on the Trish Regan Show. Chicago on fire, defying the feds. Donald Trump calling for the arrest of major people there. Meanwhile, we get breaking news. You get Comey filing his plea, all while we get more and more information in about Arctic Frost, a program in which you had FBI agents illegally spying on U.S. senators. I mean, they were wiretapping. This is unbelievable. Dan Bongino, Cash Patel, they've fired everybody involved, but I'm telling you, this story is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Meanwhile, DOJ finally came out and said, you know what, we know who did it in the Palisades. Palisades out in California, an arsonist started that. No, it turned out it wasn't climate change. Meanwhile, you get a lot of people, including a reality star named Chris Pratt, saying, hey, we need accountability. Mel Gibson, who may run for governor, wouldn't he be great, of California, saying we need accountability. What the heck were Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom doing? I mean, Karen was out partying all the way over in Africa. Yeah, she had a big New Year's Eve festival to go to. And as I said, big stuff coming out of Arctic Frost, where we're learning, of course, that this was worse than Watergate. So we're all over it here on the Trish Regan Show. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. But I get to tell you, like, things are imploding over in Chicago. I mean, this place is turning into a total tinderbox. Chicago on fire, metaphorically, of course, but, you know, it could get worse. Donald Trump calling for the arrest of the mayor, one Brendan Johnson. We are not big fans of Brendan Johnson here on the Trish Regan Show because, you know, Brendan Johnson is doing a lot to try to make sure he gets free housing for all, but doesn't seem to care about making sure that, you know, you got basics, I don't know, like safety, like, you know, you can get to school and back, you can get to work and back, you can ride the L in Chicago safely. No, none of that seems to matter to one Brendan Johnson, the mayor of Chicago. And on top of that, when Donald Trump sends in ICE to try and help make the place a little bit safer, what happens? Brandon won't allow them to pick up the phone when they get the call, and they're being surrounded. So we had a situation over the weekend, as you recall, where ICE agents were surrounded by people, their lives put in jeopardy. People were ramming vehicles into them. It was a nasty scene. And yet, where was Chicago police? They couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything because you see Mayor Brendan Johnson, his tweet here on the screen, said, stand down, stand down. So they're responding, of course, to this as it gets more and more heated. You get the mayor of Chicago saying this is not the first time Donald Trump has tried to have a black man unjustly arrested. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, so he goes right to race, like right off the bat, because this is a guy who is so myopic in his view of the world that he only sees race. Like, that's all he says. You know, we've played sound for you in the past where he's like, oh, guess what? We have a black woman who's in charge of this and a black man who's in charge of that and another black woman who's in charge of this. And he's so proud of the fact that everybody has a certain skin color where he doesn't even care about how they're doing in these jobs. I mean, it's like a throwback, right? Like a total throwback. It's like, buddy, sorry. That whole thing is come and gone. I mean, you know, it's like when feminists get all worked up and they say, you know, a woman has to be president. I'm like, okay, well, we've had a couple of them run now. I'm sure at some point, you know, somebody who's actually going to be a decent candidate may actually get it. But it shouldn't be just because you're a woman. It should be because you are the most qualified and most electable for the job. Anyway, I digress. Brendan Johnson saying, hey, you know, bring it on. It's because I'm black, whatever. And then you got Governor J.B. Pritzker, big old Governor J.B. Pritzker. Donald Trump has a great line about him. He's like, you know, he just wasn't smart enough to work in the family business. Family of billionaires. They own the Hyatt chain, you know, hotels. So he wound up going into politics because, you know, this is my addition. He was so good looking and so darn charming. Governor Pritzker saying, I'm not going to back down. Trump is calling for the arrest of elected representatives, checking his power. What else is left on the path to full-blown authoritarianism? So this is what they want to go for. You know what? Donald Trump is just being sensible here. He's like, wait a second. We got ICE officers who are being put in harm's way. They they called for help, and your city and your state will not help them. That's got to be wrong, like somehow fundamentally wrong, right? Like that's like, you're a doctor and the patient comes into the emergency room and you won't treat them. You've got to treat them, right? You're a doctor. You're a police officer. You kind of got to help them no matter what. I mean, this is why doctors will help illegals that come to emergency rooms, and this is why police will help anyone in need, theoretically, unless, of course, you're an ICE officer, and therefore some kind of appendage of Donald Trump as far as Illinois is concerned. And then Brandon Johnson tells you to stand down. Think of how messed up that is. This is why Donald Trump is saying, hey, I'm calling for their arrest. We're going to get into the legality of that and whether or not he can do that. There are other things he can do, and believe me, he will. And so will Pam Bondi. But first, here is Tim Lyons, the acting director of ICE. I've played this for you guys before, but listen again, because this is important what he's saying, okay? What he's saying is like, this is bizarre. You don't get a call as an officer of law enforcement and ignore it.
An officer assist call, you show up. What do you make of not only the audio evidence, but also the real life experience of your federal agents of them not showing up to the call?
Hey, Lawrence, yeah, it's sad because seriously, all law enforcement will respond to any other brother or sister in law enforcement that's in need. And that's what didn't happen here in Chicago. You have 30 Border Patrol agents that are being swarmed, pinned in, attacked. She has a firearm in the vehicle. They have to return fire. Yet the officers of Chicago PD are told to stand down. It just shows where we're at right now with the sad state of law enforcement going on in Illinois, is the fact that you had other federal officers under attack, yet because of politics. Federal
agents under attack, and yet you got Brandon Johnson because of his stupid politics saying, we're not going to help them. I mean, how messed up is that? Just like human being to human being, okay? Really? Do you want that kind of scene unfolding in the streets of Chicago? Unfortunately, I think they do. And then, by the way, when the ICE officers came forward and said, hey, we were under attack, what happened? They lied. Yeah, they went all on these Sunday shows and Pritzker, not smart enough to be in the family business, but somehow managed to make it into politics. He got out there and said they lied. And then you got Tammy Duckworth. She's out there saying they lied. But you know what? We know they didn't lie. We know that this is actual fact here, guys. And by the way, it's been reported on by the Chicago police because it breaks their heart that they can't do a darn thing because their hands are tied thanks to Brandon Johnson, who, yeah, practically speaking, deserves to be arrested for this. Thank you very much.
What do you know about this incident? Were federal agents boxed in and assaulted?
Well, we don't have a lot of facts. What happens in these sorts of incidents is typically ICE puts out a press release before anybody else can speak with the press, and then it gets reported on social media and elsewhere. So they are just putting out their propaganda.
She claims that federal agents were surrounded and were threatened. What are local authorities telling you about what they think happened here?
Well, they lie. Right? The Trump administration lies. We have a president who's a known liar, and they have been lying about the situation all along.
They are agents of law enforcement.
Yes.
If you box them in with vehicles, it is reasonable for them to believe that they are being ambushed and that this could end in a deadly situation. Do not box in any law enforcement officer. If you ram any vehicle, especially that one that contains law enforcement agents, and that's any law enforcement, local, state, federal, county, and you do this intentionally, this is considered deadly force. Deadly force is anything that can cause great bodily harm or death.
Okay, so just, a few little details for you. This happened the other day around 10:30 a.m. in the 3900 block of South Kenzie Avenue. A CBP, Customs Border Patrol officer vehicle, was boxed in by approximately 10 other vehicles. Later that day, you had a black Chevy Tahoe reportedly ramming an ICE vehicle repeatedly at the 3700 block of South Kenzie. So 2 individuals indeed have been charged and arrested with assaulting, impeding, and interfering with federal officers officers. And now the FBI is awarding a reward up to $50,000 for more information on the assaults. But the idea that somehow the governor of Illinois is trying to tell you, oh, it's all fake news. And then you got a senator trying to say it's all fake news. It's not fake news. It's real news. And by the way, we had to wait for the chief of police to come out and say, hey, Chicago, don't do these things, because guess what? They have every right to turn around and use deadly force because you are trying to use deadly force on them. And what's sick, plainly, is that you've got lawmakers that are so politically motivated, i.e. Brandon Johnson, i.e. I know, Cat Crazy has a special name for the big guy, the little big guy, Pritzker, okay, I won't go there because you know what we're going to do. Yes, I agree. Cat Crazy, that's his line. Trump has dementia. Trump is a dictator. Trump is this. Trump is that. I'm just reading your commentary in real time. I will tell you that these people don't know what to do. They don't know what to do because it's all been turned on their heels. They have been exposed. They have let Chicago succumb to all kinds of terrible stuff. And the crime in Chicago is off the charts. And frankly, nowhere in America should it exist like that. And so you got the feds going in. And yeah, they're going into an apartment building in the middle of the night because Tren de Agua, which is a known gang, it is there. And they want to get everybody out. So you know what? I'm sorry. Like, we could do this the easy way or the hard way. They could all export themselves, but that's not going to happen. So they got to go after the bad guys, and they're going to go after them. And they're going to keep going after them no matter what you say, Brandon Johnson, because guess what? This is one where the federal government is totally in charge all day long. Commerce clause, supremacy clause, immigration clause, you name it. We got a whole bunch of clauses. They don't have a lot of power in the federal government, but when it comes to who's here, they certainly do. And yet you get Brandon Johnson going back to the well. It's all about race. It's all about race. I want you to hear this, okay? Because you got to hear this. You know, you got to hear all sides here on the Trish Regan Show. And then I'm going to play you Stephen Miller's response to this very political animal, Brandon Johnson, good old BJ out in Chicago. Watch.
Great. This is a fundamental attack on our democracy. It's not about immigration. It's not about safety. It's about authoritarianism. And we're going to push back and we're going to defend Chicago and all American cities against this tyrant.
Okay, well, it's about authoritarianism because wait a second, he's offering to help you guys. He's sending in ICE. He's sending in the National Guards. He wants to actually help you clean up your city, but you don't want it. No, that's authoritarianism. Let's keep going.
Okay, but let me just go to the issue, like at the Chicago apartment building overnight last week. This is, according to DHS, 37 undocumented immigrants were arrested in that operation. The building was targeted because it was known to be frequented by Tren de Agua gang members. I mean, how do you respond to people who say these sorts of efforts are making the country safer?
Look, I'm working hard every single day to build the safest, most affordable big city in America. Just this past summer, we had the fewest amount of homicides since 1965. Homicides are down, shootings are down.
Okay, by the way, a lot of people have mentioned that those numbers are a little bit cooked. They're cooking the books in Chicago as they were in D.C. You know, when the anchors are like, but wait, we don't feel safer, right? Because my friend at the station, she just had her car hijacked, and another friend at the station, oh gosh, she just got mugged the other night. In other words, those numbers are manipulated. And I have this from sourcing in New York City within the police department. The people were being told that worked in the police department not to book certain people because they wanted the numbers to come down. So you can say that all you want. BJ, we're not buying it.
Are down, a lot of work to be done, but we are building a safe, affordable big city in America. But I don't know if there's anybody in America that believes that armed, masked men showing up with Black Hawk helicopters, sticking guns in the faces of Black women, zip tying Black children, putting immigrants in one van, putting Black folks in another van. This is not what built safety. What built safety is to make sure that we're doing what I've done, working with the ATF and my local law enforcement to get illegal weapons off the streets of Chicago, guns that are being trafficked from states that voted for Donald Trump. If he was serious about safety, he would not have defunded a program of $800 million that was geared towards violence prevention.
I'm sorry, enough is enough. This is the same guy who goes on and says, I don't want police, I want affordable housing. Yeah, that was the other day on Morning Joe, and Joe Scarborough actually dared to press a Democrat for once, and he kept saying, but would you take some more police? You know, if the National Guard can come in there and help you clean things up? And he's like, no, we need affordable housing. And here in this case, he's like, no, it's the guns that are the problem. Well, unfortunately, Tren de Agua, they're going to have all the guns they want, okay? So I actually think that maybe you need to start with the basics. It's like, you know, I was looking at my kids the other day, I'm trying to do math homework that's like just too hard for them at this point. I'm like, hey, let's back up because, you know, you need to know your times tables first, okay? Before we start getting into how math is a poetry. Well, that's not my kids' words. That's a school. Before we go to math as a poetry, let's get into like 2 times 3 is 6. Well, Brandon Johnson, before you get into the poetry of that, just, you know, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Utopian culture that you think you can breed there in Chicago and make it like, I don't know, Cuba? Make it like Venezuela? Maybe you make it like the former USSR. By the way, I'm pointing to plenty of examples. It's been tried all around the world before. Everybody envisions this utopia. It never works. You know why? You got to understand the basics about human nature, okay? And I'm talking basics. So you need to provide people with the basics. And the federal government ought to be able to secure people's lives and not have them living in these apartment buildings with Tren de Agua. I mean, who shouldn't be here to begin with, okay? Let's just like get first things first, okay? Before like we can do the really hard math problems, we do the basic math problems. Before we can actually really try and make sure that everybody has a path to success, let's start with the basics. Let's make sure that everybody can have a shot at a life, like actually a life, okay? Because, you know, I've spent time on the south side of Chicago a lot of years ago. That's actually the one place where I was almost mugged. I grabbed the guy's arm, I don't know what I was thinking, and told him to please hand back my purse. And I said so with a lot of steadiness and conviction. It was on the subway, as better known as the L, there in a tough part of town. I'm just telling you, Chicago's got basics it's got to work on. And yet, do you guys want to know what they're trying to do? They're actually trying to turn this whole thing around in a really twisted, warped way, and they're trying to blame Donald Trump. I mean, you heard a little bit there from Brandon Johnson, and then I want you to hear Pritzker. I know that Donald Trump's going to have a really, really good name for him, but, you know, you kind of feel like, why even bother? You're like picking on low-hanging fruit with this guy, but nonetheless, here's what he's out here saying. It's important that you listen to this. And again, I'm going to play you the response that we are hearing from Stephen Miller, but it's just important to understand where they're coming out.
It's good to see you as well. You know as well as I do, the President of the United States in the last 24 hours called for you to be imprisoned. I want to give you an opportunity. We've seen your reaction on social media, but I want to hear what you have to say back to the President of the United States.
Well, let's start with the idea that this is a convicted felon. I mean, think about that, who is threatening to jail me. I got to say, this guy's unhinged. He's insecure. He's a wannabe dictator. And there's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me.
Okay. So first of all, like, can I just jump in here, guys? Because think about what he's saying with, oh, well, you know, first of all, he's a convicted felon. A convicted felon because you guys stuck your dogs on him, right? I mean, you got everybody in their cut. Look, Fannie Willis, by the way, her case can't move forward. Her case is getting thrown out because, well, Fannie had a little too much Fannie action going on behind the scenes, all right? So that wasn't allowed, and she didn't seem to understand that or know that. Anyway, that case is going nowhere. I mean, everything has just dissolved. But that was you guys using your forces against him in a really bad way. We're going to get to that. Because this Arctic Cross thing is just the beginning. Wow, you're not going to believe what's happening over at the FBI. Again, more on that coming up. But let's continue listening to Mr. Pritzker.
So come and get me.
What does that mean exactly, Governor? Do you believe that he would follow through or that he'll chicken out? He basically said the same thing to Governor Gavin Newsom when I was with him at the height of the raids in the Los Angeles area. Governor Gavin Newsom is walking free on the streets of California. You think that he'll chicken out, or would he ever arrest you?
Well, you know the expression, Trump always chickens out, Taco. And I got to say, he can't arrest. We've done nothing wrong here. And very importantly, it's Donald Trump that is breaching the Constitution, breaking the law. We're taking him to court, and I believe we're going to win.
No. Actually, you guys are the ones breaking the law at this point. With all those little ice-free zones that you set up, we're going to get to that momentarily. But before we do, I want you to hear the response. Okay, so Stephen Miller's getting a little perturbed, a little annoyed that you got Pritzker saying he's this, that, and the other. You got Brandon Johnson saying it's just about arresting brown people. And so he was asked this question on CNN, and he was, well, clearly disgusted at the question and at the accusation itself. But no one can do this better than Stephen. Let's let him explain why this has nothing to do with that and everything to do with protecting the borders of the United States of America.
Is it the case that, as Pritzker frames it, you are profiling brown people, that this immigration crackdown is designed to go after people of color?
It's such a, oh, what a dumb question. The illegal aliens who are here are taking jobs away from blacks, they're taking jobs away from whites, they're taking jobs away from Latinos, they're taking their health benefits away, they're taking their school slots away, and of course in many cases they're committing heinous crimes. We cannot have a system of law in this country that privileges illegal aliens over American citizens, and that's what they're doing. You know it, and I know it.
So that's not exactly a no, Stephen. Can you just unequivocally state that the immigration policy... I said it's a dumb question. Okay, well, I appreciate
no,
that, but
and it's a dumb question.
So no, this policy is not designed
I thought when I said it was a dumb question, it meant no.
Well, I just want to be clear and precise. I appreciate you trying to qualify my questions, but nevertheless, I think it's a fair one that a lot of people have.
My full answer is no, that is a lie, and it's a dumb question.
Did you get that? Dumb question. Look, this is total bedlam, though. In other words, Donald Trump is not asking for a whole lot here. He just wants to actually enforce the law that actually exists. Okay, we have laws on the books. The federal government is in charge. ICE is in charge of enforcing our borders. And when you have people that are here illegally that have committed crimes, like, this is a no-brainer. This should not actually be something that's up for debate. Historically, it never was. I mean, go back to, State of the Union, Bill Clinton in the late 90s. And guess what? He'd be considered a fascist, for goodness sakes, by the likes of Pritzker and Johnson and Letitia James and Kathy Hochul and the rest of them today, because he was saying, hey, we got to have borders here. Dianne Feinstein, senator from California, God rest her soul, she was saying we can't be, this is a Democrat, the welfare system for Mexico. And the reality is we can't. Okay, we don't have the money, guys. We just don't have the money and the resources that it would take to now suddenly, and they open the spigot, right? They just open the doors and come one, come all. We're going to give you a hotel, daily maid service at the Roosevelt. Used to be a 5-star place in New York City, Midtown, East Side. Nice one. All right, daily maid service, and you get $300 and some odd a week in these little credit cards that you can go use for ethnically appropriate food. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's not happening. I mean, this is unbelievable. And I got to tell you, the latest and greatest out of Brandon Johnson suggests to me, frankly, an Alabama-style move. 1963, George Wallace. Remember when George Wallace would not allow for integration in the school system? University of Mississippi wouldn't allow black students to enroll there and actually prohibited the black students from entering. And George Wallace was out there proud as could be, standing in opposition to the federal government. And the federal government said, what? Move out of the way. National Guard's coming in. The kids are going in because we have allowed for the integration of the school system. Well, in this case, you have Brandon Johnson, who's like George Wallace here. I know, we're going to get our head around, forget about race. I think it's really important to forget about race, because none of that matters. In a real meritocracy, what do we care about? We care about the fact that people can do the job, right? And we care about making sure that we give and provide opportunities for everyone. We don't guarantee the outcome, but we want to make sure that everybody's got an equal chance. You think you got an equal chance as a kid growing up in the streets of Chicago? The short answer is no. You don't have any kind of equal chance. And so if you want to try and level the playing field, you make it a safer place. And this is what they're doing. So you get ICE in there, who is charged, right, courtesy of the Constitution, courtesy of our Congress, with going after the bad guys and making sure that people are not in the country illegally. And then you're Brandon Johnson and you say, no. I'm going to pull a George Wallace. I'm going to actually say, I'm going to create specific ICE-free zones, little areas. I mean, it's one thing to say, I'm not going to comply. I'm not going to have anything to do with this. I'm not going to allow you to use my resources. That's a lousy, crummy, bad thing to do that the president thinks you should be arrested for. But I'm just going to say that, you might be able to get some cover, legally speaking, under the idea that somehow you're a sanctuary state and you don't have to do everything that the federal government tells you to do. But you can't interfere and you can't intervene and you can't impede law enforcement. But when you create your ICE-free zones, what do you think you're doing? And this is what he's done.
Today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids.
Okay, all right, ICE-free zones. You want to talk about a legal disaster for Brendan Johnson and the city of Chicago. Those ICE-free zones are not going to hold up, not the Supreme Court anyway. You're not going to be able to do that, even though he thinks that somehow Chicago's leading the way. Leading the way to what? Civil war, for goodness sakes?
This moment that we are in, Chicago was built for this moment. Immigrants from around the world, descendants of slaves, have come to this city to make it the global capital of the world. And now we stand in a moment that is testing our very humanity, and the city of Chicago will stand the test of time.
Okay. Well, let me just break it to you. You can't do what you're doing. You just can't do what you're doing. I mean, again, maybe, and I'm being generous, you could get away with this.
Will not ever cooperate with ICE. Whatever their constitutional authority is.
Okay, so that's like bad enough. Like that is like, okay, we're not going to help you at all. We don't care what the Constitution says. We're not going to help you. We don't care if people are dying in the street. We don't care if those ICE officers are being attacked as they were most recently, getting rammed into by other vehicles. We don't care about that. We're not going to help you because we don't believe in what you're doing and we don't like the president of the United States. All right, that's bad. Okay, that's bad. And I understand, like Donald Trump's like, enough is enough. But here's the deal. Maybe this is where you do get the National Guard in there on very good standing. He's sending the National Guard in. He's sending ICE in because the National Guard is going to have to protect ICE and, frankly, the people, because Brandon Johnson's not choosing to protect the people. Instead, this is something. They got a new party line, a new talking line in Chicago and all through the Democrat Party. You can see that they read the talking points memo. This one caught my attention on The View the other day, but I was kind of flabbergasted when I heard Governor Pritzker out of Illinois issue the exact same talking point. They're trying now to say that Donald Trump is going to steal the election, the midterms. I mean, hey, I got it, guys. Your poll numbers, S-U-C-K. I mean, wow, you're down in the basement. You got a 30% approval rating. I don't think it's ever been this bad. No, I'm pretty sure it's never been this bad for Democrats. And Chicago, that mayor's got a 6% approval rating. So he's even worse than the Democrat Party as a whole. So the reality is they know they don't have the votes to win midterm elections. Why? Because when it comes to every issue, whether it be the economy or immigration, guess what? Or sports, women's sports, all day long, Donald Trump and the Republicans are trumping them quite literally. And so now look at where they're going. Listen to this very, very carefully because you got to understand the mindset. This is what they're spinning. Listen to how Governor Pritzker weaves this into his conversation.
On the streets, even before the National Guard has made it to the streets of Illinois, you've got the Border Patrol. I was in Cicero yesterday, a 90% Latino population, and I watched as they not only pick people off the streets, but family members would come up to me and ask me where their family members were. I watched you with Rachel the other night here on MSNBC, and you were talking about how CBP has basically used the justification of the 100-mile border rule to allow the deployment here, and they're saying the border of Lake Michigan, the coast of Lake Michigan is the border. Lake Michigan, many people reached out to me and said, Lake Michigan doesn't even touch Canada. Are you thinking about suing to stop the deployment of the Border Patrol here as well?
Look, I think it's important to recognize that the Trump...
He doesn't have an answer for that. So watch where he goes. This is just really important, guys, okay? Because you need to understand where they're trying to take this already. And you know what they did before. And you know that they spied on GOP senators with that Arctic frost, wiretapping their phones illegally. We're getting to all of the developments that are just coming out today on that. But first, hear what they are saying.
Administration doesn't seem to respect any laws in the United States. They just do what they want to do, and they'll keep doing it unless someone stops them. Here in Illinois, we're stopping it. We're doing everything that we can to push back. And yeah, they've got armed, we're talking about automatic weapons and camouflaged, and they're not soldiers, right? These are ICE and Customs and Border Patrol agents that are roaming the streets of Chicago, in downtown Chicago.
I like what Tammy just wrote there. Tammy Evans is convicted by people who lied and used lawfare to create something that didn't exist. You're positively right, and we're going to get more into that.
It's a show. It's a show of force. And why does Donald Trump want to do that? And I've said this before, and I think it's important for people to hear it. Listen. He wants to militarize major cities across the United States, especially blue cities in blue states. No! Because he wants us to get used to the idea of military on the streets, military troops, because there are 2026 elections. I believe that he's going to post people outside of ballot boxes and polling places. And if he needs to, in order to control those elections, he'll assume control of the ballot boxes and count the votes himself. He promised to do that. He threatened to do that back in 2020. Didn't get the chance to do it. I believe he would do it in 2026.
Do you believe we'll have free and fair elections in the United States of America during the 2026 midterms?
If we all stand up and speak out, we sure as heck will.
He's like, you can't believe this guy because he's a convicted felon. He was convicted, right, of course, because you guys put your little apparatus and machine into play. And, some of that stuff's getting thrown out, like Fani Willis's case, as we discussed. But the bottom line is he's trying to suggest right now, in the here and now, here we are, October of 2025, that the midterm elections will be stolen. They'll be stolen because, he's going to have military everywhere and he's going to steal the elections. And he's saying this with a straight face. This is what you call a talking point now. It just got put into the agenda of the Democrat Party. And how do I know that? Because yesterday, Whoopi Goldberg said this on The View, which is like, Main Street for the talking points of the Democrat Party. They have none. And so this is what they're going to listen.
This is in order to make the case, because in their minds, in all of their minds, they now believe they have carte blanche to do whatever they want to.
That's right. Yes.
That's what the feeling is.
And if they stop us from voting, that's the one thing people have.
Well, I mean, it's the one thing that makes us very different from lots of other countries. Well, our votes, they do count. I do know that they count.
If we're allowed to vote.
Well, I think people will figure out how to vote because one thing I believe I know about Americans is they don't want to be told what to do. Yeah. They don't want to be.
Okay, cue the applause.
They don't want it.
That's somebody who holds up a sign, literally, for the studio audience.
You can suggest some stuff, but they don't want you saying, you got to go over here and do this. They don't want that. They don't want a dictatorship. And I think people want, okay. I hear you.
This is the dictatorship right here.
This is the dictatorship right here.
Yeah, because your producers know. Your producers know you're getting into scary, crazy land territory. Okay, so that's not going to fly. I just want to go to one of the comments here made by Cycrex Core. 8 USC 1324 is what could be used perhaps for arresting these people. 8 USC 1324, often referred to as the immigration law, it prohibits bringing in, transporting, concealing, harboring, and encouraging unlawful aliens in the United States. So that is indeed part of what can be used here. I mean, among other things, right? Because I've cited the Commerce Clause, I've cited the Supremacy Clause, but yeah, bringing in and harboring certain aliens into our jurisdiction here in the United States is not allowed for. So conspiracy and aiding and abetting or encouraging or inducing illegal entry, harboring or concealing, I mean, these are things that you might actually be able to, as we talk about whether or not Donald Trump can have them jailed for what they're doing, that actually might be kind of in the works. I don't know. I think it would be obviously a pretty tough case, but you've got the president making the point that however you think about this, we shouldn't be in a world where ICE cannot get backup when needed from local law enforcement. And I'm looking at Bunny 07 who writes, that is why we voted out Democrats, because they were dictating what we could and could not do. Listen, this cannot go down this way. Okay, you've got Pritzker, you've got BJ trying to say that their city is totally safe from the feds despite the lawlessness that's happening. And my point is, that's not going to fly. That's not going to fly in a court of law. And forget about this nonsense. Oh, he's going to steal the election. They're so desperate because guess what? The majority of Americans actually want law and order. Majority of people in Chicago, heck, they want law and order. They want better schools for their kids. That's why they elected this guy, because he's got a background in the school system, okay? They thought it would be better than Lori Lightfoot. You remember her, Lori, who said, oh, nobody can have hair and makeup. Nobody can go to the hairdresser. Nobody can get a haircut. Nobody can get their hair dyed during COVID. Except for me, you see, because I am the face of Chicago. Oh, isn't she something to look at? Lori Lightfoot getting to have her own hairdresser come to her house, but nobody else could. You understand the hypocrisy. People are so darn sick of it. I want to get to the FBI. First, I want to give a shout out to one of our friends here on the show. Gosh, what happened to my shot? I'm looking kind of short all of a sudden, am I not? Anyway, that would be Balance in Nature. 35% off, guys. 35% off with my code TRISH, TRISH. You also get free shipping. And you get another freebie in there, a bottle of Fiber and Spice. Anyway, you know what I like about this company, aside from the fact that they help bring this show to you for free every day. So we love them and appreciate them for their sponsorship. I like the fact that when you turn around the bottle, you actually know what's in the stuff, right? Like you can actually pronounce it. And that's considered a big win for me, at least when it comes to supplements. So all the 31 ingredients in there, there are 31 ingredients in the fruits and veggies that you will recognize. And you know what's cool? You don't actually have to go and have 31 different fruits and vegetables. You don't have to go buy them all and then chop them all up. In this case, they're getting them, they're freeze drying them, they're packing them, and they're making sure that they are loaded into the supplement for nutrients for you. So go check it out today. Balance in Nature, get 35% off with my code word TRISH. It helps the show, it helps me, it will help you. So go check it out. They're balanceofnature.com. Ooh, we got to get to the FBI. This is a big story, you guys. And it just broke, of course, this was in the last 36 hours or so. We got to get to what's happening because I'm telling you, this is bigger than Watergate. Okay, let me say it again. Bigger than Watergate. This is bigger than Coin Intel Pro, or maybe it's at least along the same lines. That was what was put in place by Hoover and then continued into the 60s. This is how they were spying on Martin Luther King, for example. Anybody that they deemed a threat, they went and illegally spied upon. Well, what were they doing? They were illegally spying on 8 sitting U.S. senators. We've actually now heard as many as 12 sitting GOP senators. And Jack Smith, good old Jack Smith, is the one that organized it all, okay? Jack Smith right here, take a look. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Jackie boy, you're going down. He's the one that was out there saying, okay, we're going to use all these communications. We're going to track these private communications. Apparently, they put it all into place during J6, during the whole, aftermath of J6, in terms of the allegations against various people and trying to prove that they were trying to overthrow the government, et cetera. So what did they do instead of going the normal route and getting a FISA warrant and having probable cause and all this stuff? They just went and did it. That's really bad. Okay, I cannot underscore how bad that is. And now Bongino found out. And remember, maybe about 8 or 12 weeks ago, Bongino said this on TV. And by the way, I know him well. He's a good guy. And he has been indicating this more than just on Fox, shall we say. We knew something was coming. Indeed, it's a big freaking deal, okay? And the mainstream media is not covering it at all. I mean, I was looking at the New York Times yesterday. Nobody was covering this. I'm like, why am I the only one covering this? Fox, of course. which initially broke the story on Fox Digital. Here, take a look. Jack Smith tracked private communications calls of nearly a dozen GOP senators during the J6 probe, FBI says. And Dan had to go out there and brief Lindsey Graham, Josh Hawley, Ron Johnson, Marsha Blackburn, and more on Monday about this, Monday night. So he lets them know Monday afternoon, Monday night. It then becomes part of the testimony and the back and forth between Pam Bondi and Josh Hawley, and no one covers it. I'm like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Dan promised we would be seeing some big stuff. This is what I would classify as big stuff. The FBI saying we are cleaning up a system in the making, identifying problems, restoring integrity, and ensuring accountability through the media. And yet the media didn't even bother to report on it. No, over at The View, they were just talking about how he's going to steal the election, right? MSNBC, that's their new talking point. He's just going to steal the election. Forget about the fact that these people were doing things absolutely illegal. They've all been fired. All the spies in the FBI that were alleged to have been engaging with this Arctic frost nonsense, they've been fired. But my gosh, we got a problem, do we not? Like a serious, major problem. And nobody wanted to talk about it from the Democrat side yesterday, and nobody wanted to talk about it in the mainstream media, despite the fact that it was said by a sitting U.S. senator on Capitol Hill in a hearing with Pam Bondi. Let's go back to the tape.
Manner of things and the current president. I've also heard them said, and I just wrote it down because I wanted to be sure I heard it correctly. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies. Joe Biden never directed his attorney general to target his political opponents. That's interesting, because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it. We've got a list. Tapped my phone, tapped Lindsey Graham's phone, tapped Marsha Blackburn's phone, tapped 5 other phones of United States senators. Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phones of sitting United States senators because who knows why. They don't like them. They're members of the opposition party. They're Republicans. They're conservatives. You've seen this document, Attorney General Bondi. Well, what was going on here? Who ordered this? Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators?
Senator Hawley, I cannot discuss the details of that right now for very good reason.
You're going to do a thorough investigation into this, I trust. Is that correct?
Yes.
We will be looking at all aspects of this, and I have talked to Director Patel at length about this.
You're going to figure out who was involved in this, who signed off.
You better. I was just putting Scott's comment up that they better hold these people accountable. You betcha. They got to hold these people accountable. Because otherwise, what kind of system do you have? What kind of government do you have when your own government can be out there spying on you? You could be a sitting U.S. senator and they're going to spy on you because, oh gosh, they don't like you. They don't like your side. They were spying on 92 different organizations, including my friend Charlie Kirk's, for goodness sakes? Are you kidding me? This is so messed up. I mean, it reminds me, we were all worked up about the Tea Party years ago, right? When Obama's Lois Lerner lady, right, was trying to target any organizations, grassroots organizations, via the IRS with, extra scrutiny because they somehow were on the other side. I mean, this is like even worse. This is even bigger. This is huge. And so, yes, this is worse than Watergate. Yes, this is just within lines like COINTELPRO Pro. Again, if you guys don't know about that, that was going on let me see if I have the dates on here. I think it was Hoover up through the 60s, basically, until it was eventually exposed by none other than whistleblowers, okay? No, actually, it was 1956. J. Edgar Hoover officially launched COINTELPRO to target the Communist Party in the USA, and so between the 50s and 60s, you had the program looking at targeting civil rights groups, anti-war activists, feminist groups, student movements, and others. You had Martin Luther King Jr., for example, being targeted by this group. You had the FBI sending anonymous letters, wiretapping phones, trying to undermine King's reputation. What were they trying to do with these lawmakers? According to the memo, again, let me pull it up for you. We got about 8 of them. Here we go. Okay, here it is. And this is what I was looking at earlier. We want to know how many more. Okay, some big names on there. Lindsey Graham, he's pretty upset. Bill Hagerty upset. You've got Josh Hawley. You've got Tommy Tuberville. You've got Ron Johnson. He's very upset. Cynthia Loomis, we heard from her yesterday. You know what Cynthia's saying? She's saying she wants to know whether she has some ability to sort of personally go after them. In other words, who can she hold responsible from a personal viewpoint, from a civil and criminal viewpoint? And we have some news for Cynthia. There's a lot you can go after because this is a violation of 18 U.S.C. 2511. This would be the Wiretap Act. You can't do this, okay? It prohibits the intercepting of communications without consent. So you can't just go and wiretap people's phones. Not only were they wiretapping and they were figuring out who they were talking to, they were also trying to figure out their location. So they had like a geographic location on people too. I mean, that's kind of freaky. They know exactly who you're talking to, how long you're talking to them, and where you are when you're talking to them. Plus the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, 18 U.S.C. 1030, if hacking or unauthorized access was involved. Okay, I think we got the Wiretap Act, I think we got the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and we have state privacy and eavesdropping laws, which often carry civil and criminal penalties. So what does this mean? It means Pam Bondi's life just got even busier, okay? Even busier, you guys, because they're gonna go after them. Again, back to Josh Hawley.
I believe also track our location over a period of days. This is outrageous. I mean, this is really unbelievable. It's blatantly unconstitutional. It's a violation of the First Amendment. It's a violation of the separation of powers. And it also goes to show you the extent to which the Biden administration was so corrupt, using the FBI to target their political enemies. And let's not forget, they didn't just do it to senators. They did it to school board parents who went and spoke up at those school board meetings. They did it to 92 conservative organizations, including Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. They tried to recruit spies into Catholic parishes. That's the kind of people we're dealing with here. Bill, we need a total investigation, a thorough investigation into everybody who was responsible, and I think there needs to be prosecutions.
Okay,
so you better believe there's got to be prosecutions. Like, I'm not kidding on this. There's got to be prosecutions because you can't actually stand by and allow for this to exist. You think about Watergate and how they were, breaking into headquarters to what? To spy on their political enemies. Same kind of thing here. They're spying on their political enemies. So there's a lot of analogies that can be made, and the DOJ has got some work to do. Pam Bondi, your life just got really, really, really busy. Okay, it's one thing to fire the guys. Now we need them held accountable. We need Jack Smith held accountable. And apparently, the guy who actually initiated all of this, and this is very interesting, is somebody who had a long history at the FBI, I should point out, and was somebody who was used for corruption cases in the past. And he's the one that actually was initially ordering this. Isn't that interesting, right? He was the one that was initially ordering this, and then all of this is now coming forward, and we're finding out just exactly how bad it really and truly is. But I got to say, the fact that they got this going in the first place, it's actually pretty alarming. And it shows you how corrupt and messed up the Biden, and I say Obama because it was a holdover from the Obama days, just exactly how messed up they were. But it was the guy who was the head of the FBI in Eastern Virginia. And thanks to these whistleblowers, thank goodness for whistleblowers, that's how we found out about COINTEL as well. They're coming forward and they're dishing on exactly what went down. And Cash and Dan went in and they found the memos, and now it's getting exposed, just as James Comey is getting exposed for all he's worth, which is not a whole lot. Today, pleading not guilty in a court of law.
FBI Director James Comey in front of a judge moments ago in a hearing that we did not think would last long, and apparently that is the case. He has entered a plea of not guilty to 2 charges, federal level now. Our producers inside the courtroom say the former director accused of lying to Congress, obstructing a congressional proceeding, entered the plea moments ago in front of the judge, Michael Nachmanoff, appointed by Joe Biden. Not guilty on both federal charges. He's accused of lying in front of Congress back in 2020. So that is the update inside the courtroom. And while that's happening in one part of Northern Virginia, this is happening across.
Yeah. So Comey is indicted because, you see, he's been caught allegedly lying to Congress because he's been caught, it seems, trying to peddle stories in order to get things into the news cycle, in order to, well, get a special investigation going. And by the way, he admitted this. I want to show you the tape. He admitted it. Okay, like let's listen in.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No. I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
Wow. What a guy. Comey, you are just a scumbag. I'm sorry. You know that I don't use that word all the time, but I'm not really sure how else to say that other than he is one giant scumbag. And he was part of all of this, right? Like, he was part of it. They couldn't believe that Donald Trump actually won, so they had to come up with the Russia narrative. And then, after he won, and they figured, okay, finally they got Biden in there and Biden was going to take over. And then they launched this Arctic frost thing using J6 the entire time. We've talked about this. I mean, J6 was unbelievable to me how that was spun. They got Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Alexandra, in there with her little video camera, taking all the tape, right? And then setting it to music and then sending it to CNN, where CNN would run it in a loop pretending as though it was theirs. I mean, it came from Alexandra Pelosi. It wasn't them. They weren't in there independently. You had Alexandra Pelosi, did you hear the last name, telling that story for all of America. And then all these ABC News producers that were brought in from Good Morning America, many of whom I know, to package the whole thing for a primetime special, right? So that they could educate America on just how bad Donald Trump was and how he tried to overthrow the U.S. government. And then they used Timothy Thibault. I was looking for his name. It was on the tip of my tongue. Former assistant special agent in charge of the FBI's Washington field office. So he was the guy who was there initiating this Arctic frost thing. And then you had special counsel Jack Smith saying, oh, this looks pretty good. Let me continue it on. These people are in trouble. Like this Timothy Thibault, he could be going to jail. You've got Jack Smith, who frankly could be going to jail. I mean, if they did not follow the proper etiquette for this, they will go to jail and they should go to jail because there's no excuse for it. This is not who we are. And I know they're trying to clean it up, but you can only clean this up if you actually have people that are going to serve as examples for what you can't and should not do. And by the way, James Comey knew this was coming the entire time. That's why he said over and over again, I don't care. I don't care how much you don't like Biden. You've got to vote for him. You've got to vote for him because Donald Trump, he's going to tear apart the DOJ. He's going to tear apart the FBI. Oh, I don't know. He's going to find all those files. Yeah, those files that said that you illegally wiretapped the phone of between 8 and 12 U.S. senators, for goodness sakes. Yeah, no wonder you're freaking out back in, this would have been, I guess, ahead of the election at some point. This was right before Kamala came in. He was singing for his supper on MSNBC.
When you think about a second Trump administration, what do you think the implications would be for the FBI?
Oh, serious, for the Justice Department and the FBI, because Trump is coming for those institutions. He knows their power, and I think he has regrets that he didn't work hard enough to corrupt them last time. So he's coming for them, and that's a danger for all Americans. He's going to put people in positions in those organizations. He didn't have all-stars the last time. He'll have the bottom of the barrel this time, but people who will want to do his will, and that should worry every American. This election matters. Because of a reason like that, people have to participate. You cannot sit on the sideline. I don't care how you feel about Joe Biden, you must vote for him because the consequences on the other side are too severe.
The consequences for who exactly? James Comey. I mean, just so we get this straight, right? The consequences for who?
FBI Director James Comey in front of a judge moments ago in a hearing that we did not think would last long, and apparently that is the case. He has entered a plea of not guilty.
He says he's not guilty. Well, this will be interesting to watch, won't it? I mean, very interesting to watch. And again, I'm looking at your comments again in real time. This is a live show. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do. Look, you can't live in a world where your government can be manipulated so as to become an aggressive tool that you can use politically against the other side. Like we just can't actually have that. That would destroy the foundation of who we are. And yet they did it and they did it and they did it and they did it. And so I get it. Like some people are like, well, then why are we doing it again? Why are we turning around? And I'm going to tell you a story. If you listen to my show regularly, you may know this story because I asked Donald Trump after he became elected, I said, Mr. President, like, why didn't you go after Hillary Clinton? And he's like, Trish, I mean, she's the wife of a former president. She was running against me. Like, it didn't feel right. I feel like we got to move on. We're going to do lots of good. And he was all about growing the economy, growing middle-class wages. He wanted to stay focused on those things. And so he didn't go after her because he felt like that was backward looking. Well, guess what? Here we are now. What did they do? J6 happened. They ran with that all the way they could, all the way to the bank, except they never really did get to the bank, did they? Because look who's back in office. So that happened. And now they're trying to come up with crazy new excuses. Oh, Donald Trump's going to try and steal the midterm elections. That's their latest and greatest. It doesn't work, guys. You know what? It doesn't work because nobody believes you anymore. Everybody sees through everything that you're doing. For goodness sakes. I mean, you think about the mainstream media. They're actually rated lower than Congress, lower than the Democrat Party. I believe the Gallup poll showed a 28% approval rating. Yeah, 28% approval rating. And you know what? Most people in the GOP are not turning to the mainstream media anymore for their news. No. They're turning to places like What Do You Know, right here on the Trish Regan Show. And also they're going to X and other locations because they can't trust the mainstream media because the mainstream media doesn't deserve to be trusted. They're the ones that didn't bother to cover the biggest story since Watergate, spying by the Biden administration into the phones and phone records of sitting U.S. senators. Who knows how much more we've got going on? Watch. Okay, we'll try that again. Maybe they don't want you to see this.
Much of a surprise.
No, not at all. Specifically Twitter. If you're on Twitter, you've noticed a shift here.
Oh, I would think so. I think there are a lot of folks who have been on Twitter and may have realized, wait a minute, there seem to be a lot more Republicans in my feed, especially since Elon Musk took over. And oh my goodness gracious, what a tremendous, monumental shift on the regular news consumers on Twitter/X. You go back to 2021, the party ID margin. Democrats were 37 points more likely. You were 37 points more likely to be a Democrat on Twitter or X than a Republican. Jump ahead to this side of the screen. It's completely changed around. Oh, my goodness gracious. Now it's a 14-point lead for Republicans on Twitter/X. We're talking about a 51-point shift in the margin. And John and I were talking about it just before. You can see it with your own eyes. This is polling reflecting what you're seeing in the social media real world, where all of a sudden, John, you just see a lot more Republicans.
You know why? You know why that is? I'm just going to say, here's the deal. Because they're not being shadowed anymore. And their voices are being heard because you don't have the Biden administration saying you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, I ran into it myself, right? And I have very, very good friends who were deplatformed. I mean, it's just the reality. And Mark Zuckerberg has actually outlined all of this in an interview with Joe Rogan. And I'm going to tell you guys, we can't go back to that. We just can't go back to that. And that's on either side, okay? So when you ask the question, like, why is he doing this? I'm telling you, he didn't take that opportunity before. Now he's back. It's Trump 2.0, and he's not holding back because he knows what they do. He knows that they will grab the ball and they will run with it as hard as they can. They will go after all their political enemies. Apparently, they're even going to spy on you, too. So you have to actually set the course right. And that's what they are doing. I mean, for goodness sakes, think about what went down. Trying to say he wasn't a legitimate president because he was put there by the Russians. Jimmy Carter's quote, former president of the United States, not me. That was Jimmy Carter saying that. I'm not telling you the Democrats said this. They said it. Okay. And then you had Hillary Clinton on it too. Everybody's saying he's not legit. He's not legit. Are you kidding me? You want to know who started this? You guys opened Pandora's box. You really did. Think about all the people that couldn't even get, for example, bank accounts. Imagine that. Cancel culture on steroids, to the point where you'd go into a regular old bank and they wouldn't even want your business. I mean, that was pretty darn wild. And this was something that was going on. I'll tell you, I've talked to a lot of people also in the crypto industry that experienced all of this, and it was really wrong. It was just so wrong. And I got to say, you know, under both the Obama and Biden administrations, you had regulators basically pressuring banks to close accounts. Remember the one, oh, this was great, Dick's Sporting Goods. If you had ever bought something at Dick's Sporting Goods, you were suddenly like being watched. I mean, even Jamie Dimon was like, this is getting ridiculous, from JP Morgan Chase. They were asking for all kinds of things. I remember Bank of America there somehow involved in this as well. It was crazy. So it was politically motivated debanking that was trampling on the freedoms of everyday citizens, everyday Americans, and punishing people if they disagreed with the viewpoint, the narrative that was coming from the Biden administration. And so thankfully, President Trump's doing something about it. He has said enough is enough. He's taken decisive action here. He's got an executive order calling for regulators who abuse their power and to stop, basically. I mean, maybe we need to go a little further. And he's making it clear that debanking has got to end once and for all. But you know what? It's going to require more. It's actually going to require an act of Congress, which is why it's important. I'm going to give you the name of a group, Americans for Free Markets, that I partnered with on this, in both thanking the president for standing up for everyday Americans and our rights, right? While simultaneously urging Congress to follow his lead. So together, they can establish a national fair access standard for free markets is the name of the group. A free sort of resource for you to learn more about this debanking and to be part of this, right? Because we've got to ask for clarity. We've got to ask for consistency. We've got to ask for long overdue accountability on financial regulation in order to make sure that this doesn't happen again. We need to protect the financial freedom of every single American citizen. And so we need Congress to build upon Donald Trump's executive order, build upon his leadership, build upon his these outdated laws and update them and make sure that, you know, we're not going to go through this again. So go to For Free Markets, FOR, freemarkets.com today. Important. I've got another update I want to share with you, this one on the Palisades situation. Just out today, we have learned that it was an arsonist. No, not climate change, but an arsonist who is responsible for those horrible fires that resulted in 12 deaths and the destruction of so much property there in the state of California. Let's go to the DOJ attorney, the Department of Justice attorney, U.S. attorney, who announced this just earlier today.
Good morning. I'm Bill Asaley, the acting United States attorney for the Central District of California. Today, we are announcing the arrest of 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht for igniting a fire that ultimately burned down the Palisades earlier this year, killing 12 people, destroying more than 6,800 structures, both homes and businesses, and damaging over 1,000 more buildings. The complaint unsealed today charges the defendant with destruction of property by means of fire, a felony that carries a mandatory minimum 5-year federal prison sentence and is punishable by up to 20 years in federal prison. The defendant was arrested.
This is the guy with this sinister plot to devastate the Pacific Palisades. Alleged. I want to be very careful. He is alleged to have done this. Couldn't possibly have been an arsonist, except it was, from what the DOJ has said, from what the arrests were made, apparently he was an arsonist. So they're going to have to deal with that. Meanwhile, you have a lot of questions being asked at this moment in time about why it was that law enforcement didn't actually respond sooner or better. I mean, Mel Gibson, don't forget, this summer he was out accusing Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom of some kind of Maui-style land grab. Remember? I played this one in the shorts feed. Let's take a look. Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass of a land grab.
There is absolutely no adequate excuse the governor or mayor can make for this gross mismanagement and failure to preemptively deal with what they knew was coming. Right. Was it incompetence? Was it indifference? Complacency? Carelessness? Was it negligence? Absolutely. Was it criminal negligence? See, there are many who say that it is criminal negligence.
Yes, absolutely.
Do the mayor and the governor give a damn about you?
No, absolutely
Hell no.
not. No.
I mean, that's clear.
Yeah. Now for governor.
I think he's going to run for governor, and he might win. Yeah, I do think that. So that was quite an accusation. And look, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, but I will tell you this: Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom are taking a lot of heat. And Karen's background and her, former training, shall we call it? We don't know. She said she was never actually trained by the Cubans, but she spent a whole lot of time in Cuba for somebody who wasn't being trained by them. This is all getting questioned right now, including by a former reality star. Maybe he's still a reality star. I don't watch a lot of reality TV, forgive me. But this guy, Chris Pratt, lost his home. Spencer Pratt lost his home, and he's now basically calling out the governor Newsom, saying this is your fault. This fire was your fault. Meanwhile, we're getting reports today of a housing plan, a $101 million low-income housing plan for the Palisades that Gavin is proudly unveiling. And there are a lot of people that worry, this is actually something that was sent out by Chris Pratt, that people that worry that they're trying to take this land and turn it into some kind of low-income housing development for people who are coming here to the country illegally. That's sort of the conspiracy theory going on. But again, a big deal for low-income housing being announced in the Palisades today. You got Mel Gibson accusing them of the Maui-style land grab. And you've got this reality show person, Pratt, who's Spencer Pratt, saying, hang on, they are liable for this. They are absolutely liable. Let's listen.
Boom! Our lawyers months ago told the court what caused the Palisades fire, and today the Department of Justice has proven us right. It was a rekindle of the New Year's Eve Lockman fire and wasn't properly contained by LA City Fire. The city left it to burn, and the state left it to burn for nearly a week on their property. They are now on the hook for the dangerous condition that led to the destruction of my town. Told you. The best part is now, finally, we get access to the ATF report. I told you justice was coming. This is just the beginning.
It's sort of amazing because Karen Bass, her texts during this whole time, and so this is why you now have people asking serious questions, and they call into question, for example, her background, which is interesting. So this, you just go to Google, okay, and you'll find out that in the 1970s, as a young activist, I mean, she must have been 19 years old at the time. She was making trips to Cuba to be part of the Venceremos Brigade, which is a group that was supporting Fidel Castro's government. And while the nature of the trips has not been completely revealed, there are a lot of sort of questions about it. Apparently she was doing Habitat for Humanity type stuff, but people are like, why is she working with a Fidel Castro group, for goodness sakes? I mean, that's a little bit weird. Okay, so her first visit, again, this is Google AI, and they cite 12 different sources, including The Atlantic. Age 19, 1973, she was an organizer for the Southern California chapter of the brigade, and she reportedly visited Cuba a whole bunch. And then she talked about how she attended rallies to hear Castro speak and found him charismatic, though she knew the Cubans lacked the freedoms that she had in the U.S. So on the one hand, it seems kind of cool, right? They romanticize this communism stuff, and then on the other hand, it's ooh, the whole cold, harsh reality of not having these freedoms. On top of that, as I said, this brigade had a pretty bad reputation. The FBI was out there investigating it, okay, for alleged ties to Cuba. and in intelligence in Cuba and in weapons training, which Bass says, no, she never got any weapons training. That came later, apparently. She did that one in California. But wow, okay? And so you can understand why there are some people that are saying, wait a second, why did this happen? Why was it so long for them to get their act together? I'm just going to tell you, I think it's just bad government, right? It's really bad government. For goodness sakes, the woman took off and she went to Ghana or something for a New Year's festivity. And then when all of this came out and she looked like an idiot, somehow managed to delete all her texts. According to a local news report, Karen Bass deleted all of her texts related to this entire thing.
Messages from the first days of the January wildfires were apparently deleted. That's according to a new report from the Los Angeles Times. A city lawyer says Bass's phone auto-deletes messages and claims state public record laws don't cover texts. The messages were requested under public records laws but could not be provided.
Yeah. Funny how that works. Funny how it works that she did send a tweet about it on X. She said, be safe. It's going to be bad, blah, blah, blah. But apparently it wasn't going to be so bad that she wasn't going to stick around to actually see her city through it. Nope, she hightailed it out of there, not only out of LA, but out of the country all the way over to Africa so she could be part of the New Year's festivities there. And then when she came back, there was a reporter waiting for her at the airport. Remember this? It was like Karen Bass suddenly is mute.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
She's like a mute. It's like, what's wrong with her? When I first saw this tape, I was like, what is wrong with her? Is she okay? Is she does she have PTSD? No, she just literally ignored him. It's so weird.
No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding?
Maybe not. I can answer that for you. Gee, I'm sorry. You know what? I was away for the new year. I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was. But this is obviously a serious, serious, serious tragedy. And I wished it had never happened. And yes, people will be held accountable because they should be held accountable because this is wrong. And we can never allow for mediocrity. I mean, mediocrity. I remember the woman who was head of the fire department at the time. Wasn't she the one that was when she was asked, hey, what if somebody's too big that you're trying to get out of the window? And I believe this is the woman who was like, well, it's his fault for being in the fire. I'm like, no. You're the firefighter. You actually have to be able to carry a human being out. And if you're not strong enough, you shouldn't be in the job, right? It's not that hard to understand. It was part of the reason why I created my company, 76 Research. I was so sick of this DEI, ESG nonsense, by the way, interfering with basic old things like what's a good investment? What's a profitable company? I mean, Disney, they ought to have gotten themselves smarted up a long time ago, right? Because now they just have movies that nobody wants to watch because of DEI and ESG. Anyway, go to 76research.com, my investment company I started with a good friend. You can actually see it on my computer at various times as well, a little sticker. Use code word dollar so you can get the 76 report for just $1 a month. Listen, guys, we got a whole lot of news going on today. This was a big show. We went beyond our hour because you know what? We needed to. We had a lot to get through, including all the concerns about whatever may have happened in California. We're going to continue to stay on that story. We also are going to continue to stay on what the Biden FBI was doing, okay? Don Bacca, don't be so pessimistic. He says nobody's going to be held accountable. I'm going to tell you, we're going to make sure they're held accountable, okay? I'm really angry right now. You've seen it the last couple of days. I am furious. It is disgusting what went down. It is disgusting that the New York Times can't even bother to actually cover the story, a really important story on the FBI and the illegal activities it engaged with. All of those agents now fired. Thank you very much, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. We need some adults in the room. Meanwhile, Chicago, hey, get ready. There's no way you're going to win that battle. I'm sorry. You know what? And you are mad because guess what? more and more. Donald Trump's taken Chicago. The GOP's taken Chicago. Your policies have failed over and over and over again. You've had plenty of years. It hasn't worked out so well. Now has it for the residents of Chicago? So they're thinking differently. And suddenly a guy comes along, the president of the United States, who's willing to clean up their community, and they are thankful, whether you guys like it or not. Sorry, you're going to lose, you're going to lose, you're going to lose over and over and over again. It's great to have you guys here. Please make sure that you sign up for the channel, that you subscribe, that you share. Oh, and my Spotify. Hey, I put that in there. Let me see if I can actually put it. Look at this. I've got a nice little thing I can put right here in the chat and maybe even pin it to the chat. This is like real technical skills. Tell me if that works. Can you actually go to the Spotify link on that? I'm actually not sure if you can. I'm not fully sure if you can, so let me know if that actually takes you over there. Let me see if I try clicking it. Hopefully you can. Anyway, go check me out on Spotify. Make sure you rate me because I'd like 5 stars only, please, and make a nice little comment. You have to actually listen to one of the shows for a little bit before you actually do the rating. So go over to Spotify, look for the Trish Regan show, the one where I'm in red with the blue background, okay? Listen or watch and give me a rating. Please subscribe to it over there. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing. We only got like 12,000 subs, but we just started. So, you know, hey, you got to start somewhere. Look at us here. We're over 1 million. Imagine that. Imagine that. Thank you guys. I mean, it's a testimony to how this medium is changing so much. It's a testimony to your appetite for the truth and your appetite for everything that's not mainstream media, because that I definitely am not. I was part of it. I was part of it for a couple of decades. I was disillusioned, but I'll tell you, it's like seeing the light. I'm over here on YouTube. Thank you so much. And on Spotify. Good to have you. I'll see you tomorrow.